I have a Chopper plushie now. So he was one of my birthday gifts from my mom. He'll probably end up just being in the background most of the time anyway, unless I decide to just have him a little more, you know, front and center. And my other birthday gift I got from my mom, I got the Doug Flamingo shirt from Grand Line Review. I also want the Katakuri one that he has, but I just haven't gotten it yet. So these are my gifts from my mom. This is the first One Piece video I'm making after my birthday, so I figured I'd wear this. Chopper, can you sit and not fall over? Oh, well, that's not happening. Hold on. Here. Sit on the cake. Sit by the cake. Okay, no. Chopper, you just lay down over here and look cute. And my armrest stuffed animal runs away. Whatever. So, also Chopper is, he's none of the Straw Hats are really in this chapter, but we have Chopper on the cover page. So this is about chapter 1082, which is out an entire week early than when it was supposed to be out. So I thought I had another day where I didn't have to do a review, and I had a video planned, so that video has now been moved to next week. And now we have this. Because apparently One Piece people are not patient enough to wait for another week to watch a clown get his ass beat. Watch a clown make a fool of himself. We get a lot in this chapter. We go to about 3 places for the most part. But the cover page is it was a fan request. It's Chopper. I think he's asleep and he's dreaming that like Zeus is cotton candy and he's trying to eat him. So that works. The chapter is called Let's Go and Claim It. Or that's at least the chapter translation that I've seen that I'm using. So we start off the chapter with finding out that Vice Admiral T-Bone, who we've seen before in the series, he was during the Enies Lobby series, or during the train ride to Enies Lobby section of the series. He's like, I think he's the, I don't know, I don't remember what his epitaph is, but he's like Admiral T-Bone is who he is. Kind of looked a little bit like a corpse. A little bit, still kind of does. Now he's dead, so it's okay. We find out that he was killed by a civilian who is then cashing in for the Cross Guild bounty. So we kind of start off at Marine HQ, where we have Sengoku and Suru talking. We've seen Suru's granddaughter in the last 2 chapters, so now we're getting to see Suru. She gets to mention Kujaku at some point in time during this, I think, or she gets at least mentioned. And we see Sengoku and Suru talking, and they're just discussing stuff about like what happened with T-Bone, and they're just like, this is ridiculous. Civilian, we're sworn to protect the civilians, and now they're going to start stabbing us in the back. This is not good. I mean, and Suru even points this out. I love the fact that like Suru is kind of playing devil's advocate here, because she is like the great tactician and everything. Suru is like, the great tactician, that type of a thing. And that's kind of like her moniker. Like, she's very, very good at that. And I know technically there's other, Vice Admiral female Marines and everything like that, like Momoshagi and a couple of other ones. But I would say that Suru is probably just like, the highest, just default out of seniority, the highest ranking female Marine that they have. Just because of how long she's been in the Marines and how much she's contributed to it and everything else. And we know that she chased Doflamingo for years and everything. So there's a fair amount that we know about Suru in that regard. Also, we know about her, Sengoku, and Garp knowing each other for a long time. And I have another comment on that I'll get to in a little bit. So Suru is basically pointing out, that pirates aren't the only ones interested in money. It's all, there's Marines, yes, but now that there's bounties on our heads, there were always bounty hunters out there that were, going after the pirates and trying to, hand their bounties into the government and everything. That's what Zoro was initially. Same thing with Johnny and Yosuke. We saw that brought up at Dressrosa and everything. With several of the people that were part of the gladiatorial games were bounty hunters that then turned pirates because of Luffy. So bounty hunters are not an odd thing in the series. But now, because of what the Cross Guild are doing, and them being able to, whether or not they'll actually be able to pay is a little bit, up in the air. But, Suru is pointing out that, because there's so many places in the world where there is a lot of poverty and starvation and everything like that, that they mentioned the country that this happened in, and it was like Pepe Kingdom or something like that. And it's just like there's starvation there, and thousands of people die there every year because of it. And it's no wonder that someone there was desperate enough to, kill him because, to kill T-Bone because of the money that it would bring them and their family. So it's just like Suru is very good at playing devil's advocate. I actually kind of like to do devil's advocate too when I'm like arguing with people, or when I'm, well, not necessarily when I'm arguing with them, but when I'm trying to see something from like their perspective on things. I will use the devil's advocate thing where it's just like, okay, maybe I don't necessarily agree with this, but I at least understand to a degree where they're trying to make these points. And that's what Suru is trying to point out here to Sengoku. And we have them, discussing all of this, and they're both very worried about the fact. Also, I like how they're having like this conversation in the middle of what looks like the Marine HQ mess hall, because we see Sengoku's goat there and it's just having fun. It's just eating. And then we also see like other Marines walking around in the background. And just like, they keep pausing momentarily to like wave at some of the other Marines as they walk by. So that's just kind of nice. So it's just like, we don't get to see that many of the Marines having like this big, like kind of, more casual setup. We saw that a little bit during the Reverie when we saw Garp and a bunch of the other Marines, including like Hina, and I think we saw Dawn Giant there, and like a few other ones that were all there, like Momosagi and Brown Pig and everything, that we saw a bunch of them there, all just like eating and everything, because they were there like, guard and keep watch over the Reverie and everything. But in this case, we're getting to see it, seeing it at Marine, HQ and everything. So, it's like a nice little thing that we get to see there, or just like casual kind of thing happening. So, obviously Sengoku and Suru are not happy about what's going on with, with what's going on with the Cross Guild. Sengoku mentioned, I can't believe that clown was actually that devious the entire time. I'm like, oh God, Sengoku. Okay, Buggy does get to show some deviousness in this chapter, and I really like it. But generally, Buggy is, we, of course, as the audience, know that Buggy is not this, mastermind that he appears to be, and everything that, like, all the people that are following him after, after breaking out of Impel Down and everything like that. Like, we know that that's not the case. But I like the fact that it's Sengoku probably didn't interact with Buggy all that much. I mean, Buggy, I don't know if Buggy was made a warlord fully before or after Sengoku, was no longer fleet admiral, so he probably didn't interact with Buggy all that much. So all he's probably heard is like what's in the newspapers and what he, reads and reports that come in from other Marines that have like dealt with him. And then, now that Buggy has, Crocodile, appearingly to the world, Buggy has, Crocodile and Mihawk as his two lackeys. We, audience, know this is not true. World as a whole, for the most part, are like, okay. Luffy and the crew, okay, no, there's definitely something up with that. Because they've interacted with Buggy enough, and they've interacted with Crocodile and Mihawk. And they're just like, yeah, no, Crocodile and Mihawk would not take flack from Buggy, would not follow Buggy's orders in that regard. But, most of the other people in the world haven't had that interaction with Buggy before, where they've seen how incompetent he can be. He has his moments, which we saw a lot of those in Impel Down, and a lot of those, throughout Marineford at times. And then, now we've seen Buggy and how he can, talk himself out of a lot of different situations. But, we see Sengoku and Suru discussing stuff, and then, like, they see, um, Hina comes in and they're like, "Oh, hey, Hina, have you seen Garp and everything?" And Sengoku's like, "I found some new rice crackers. I want him to try," which is just a running gag between Sengoku and Garp because like they both like rice crackers, and it's just funny that they like have that little fun little friendship there and everything. That's just adorable. I love that friendship that those two have. And Hina just goes like, no, he went off a couple of days ago saying something about like rescuing Kobe, I think. Blah 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 blah. He probably teamed up with Sword and went with him. Oh yes, Suru, your granddaughter Kujaku's with him too, I think at least. Yeah, just like, and then Sengoku and and I love it. It's like Sengoku and Suru are just like, what? Like they're just like the, oh my god, why does this keep happening to us type of face, and don't tell me that they went to Hachinosu. Oh god. So this is probably going to be some of the general reactions that we get out of the Marines when they find out that Garp and a bunch of the other members went to Hachinosu. Also, Hina just said, he just teamed up with Sword and everything. So, it implies that, at least Sword is like a known group within the Marines, but we still don't know 100% how that all fits together in the grand scheme of things. And that whole grand scheme of setups. But the thing that I wanted to point out about this is that I love Sengoku and Suru's reaction to this, because you'd think after the 40-some years of having to put up with Garp at this point in time that they would be a bit more used to his antics and just the way that he tends to do things. You'd think they'd be a little bit more used to that at this point in time. But no, apparently not. It's good to know at least that he could still keep their relationship exciting. I know a while ago there were theories that like maybe Suru was Dragon's mom when we were first getting introduced to that part of the family tree and everything. Oh, she's a Marine that's been around Garp for a long time. She has to be she has to be Dragon's mom. I'm like, no, I don't think so. I don't think. First of all, that would then make Kujaku Luffy's like half cousin or something like that, depending on whoever their Kujaku's mom was, mother or father was in regards to relation to Sengoku. But Suru does not strike me as the woman that would be willing to put up with being in a relationship with Garp, let alone having his child and then helping him raise said child. That does not seem like something that Suru would be willing to do. We know that she probably was around Corazon a lot, around Roshinate a lot while he was growing up, because he was raised by Sengoku and everything after he was, found, after what happened with him and, with Dofi and everything when they were kids. So she was probably around him a lot, but, I don't know, she may have been around Dragon at times, depending on how much Garp interacted with Dragon while he was growing up. But again, we don't know all this information. Then we go to Kalibali Island, so Empty Bluffs. And we see that, it's still the big circus party and everything. We see that the guy who, was the one that killed, Vice Admiral T-Bone is there. And he's just like, I heard my family received the money, so thank you. He's just like, he's just like this skinny old man that just like, he just looks like so hungry and everything. And, as they pointed out, as Suru pointed out, it's like he comes from a country that is like exceedingly poor, probably can barely pay, the celestial tribute and the heavenly tribute and everything. And it probably was in like a worse situation than what we saw at Lucia Kingdom, where at least the people there didn't seem to be starving. That, they mentioned specifically in Pepe that like they are starving, that 1,000 of them die like almost every year because of that. And, so we see all of that. Pepe also may not have been like affiliated with the world government type of an island. But the fact that T-Bone was there meant that probably it was, because they don't generally tend to protect the places that aren't associated with the world government. So there's that. But like, we see this old guy there, and he's, getting like thanked and, applauded by Buggy and all of the other, crew members and stuff like that are there, that are like the former prisoners and everything. And He's just like, the old guy's like, well, even if I can't see my family again, at least I know that they won't die from starvation anymore. You know, we see like a flashback of like him and probably like his wife and their children and everything, and just like seeing how they do kind of look a little bit emaciated in the picture. So yeah, there's that. Don't know. I mean, like, I don't know if the conditions would have been as bad as what we saw in Wano, because in Wano they of course were getting stuff from the leftover towns, and they had, they just had to not eat like the poison food, but they still did, and all that other stuff. So it just, it depends on, we were introduced to that a lot in Wano, and now we're seeing that it is, a reality on other places, not just, on countries that may not be associated with the world government, but on ones that probably are. um we saw bits of that in like the gray terminal and stuff like that back, in Luffy and the, and, in Luffy's flashback and everything. Um, and that is a reality in a lot of places in our own world as well, unfortunately. But we see just like Buggy congratulating the guy, and all the rest of them are just like, yeah, you're gonna be joining, you're gonna be on, you're gonna be joining us here and everything like that. You're gonna become a pirate like us, and you're gonna help us, you're gonna be a part of an emperor's crew and everything like that. So they're just like, yeah, Buggy's great, Buggy's awesome, and they're just, cheering and everything for him. And then, Buggy's just like, yeah, I'm awesome. And I'm on the inside, he's like internally screaming about the fact of like, oh God, please don't let Crocodile and Mihawk get angry at me. Please don't let me do anything that's going to make them angry at me and everything. And then we find out that like, oh, they're building a ship and everything. And oh, we finished the ship. It's all finished and done and everything. And Buggy had like told Mihawk and Crocodile that are just like, yeah, oh no, I've got some really great, talented shipwrights here. They'll build us a ship. Cut to the ship that is like this giant monstrosity of like, take like the Going Luffy senpai, I think that like the Barto Club have, and like just make it Buggy themed, and that's what you got basically. By the way, I tried Googling clown boat to see if there was anything funny that popped up. Not really. It was just like a bunch of either clowns in a canoe or Pennywise from It, and I didn't care for either of those. So it wasn't really worth it. I wasn't expecting there to be anything of like a big over-the-top clown style pirate ship boat, but I thought maybe there would have been something that looked a little bit more entertaining. But there wasn't. And we just see like Buggy is just like, oh God, no, as he's like staring at the giant boat and everything. I mean, it looks like it's very well made at the very least, and like they got a lot of nice details on it and everything. So at least like it would be like if this boat showed up on my island and it wasn't a pirate boat, and like it's like, oh, this is like a giant traveling circus boat. That would be kind of fun. I'm not the biggest fan of clowns, but that'd be fun. And this big giant circus boat showed up on your island. That'd be fun. We don't get a name of the boat, but I'm pretty sure it's probably similar to like maybe whatever the boat name was that like Buggy had back in the East Blue or whatever, like that ship that they had there. I don't think it was called the Big Top, but it was like something like that. It's like a reference to the circus and three-ring circus and stuff like that. And we just see Buggy just like, oh God, I am so dead, because we cut and we see Mihawk and Crocodile behind him, and Buggy, and they're just like, you expect us to use this thing? And it's like that whole thing of just like Buggy just like crying, of just like, oh God, I'm going to be in so much pain very quickly. And they're just like, come with us. We need to go have a talk in the meeting room. And it's just like, oh God, this scene in the movie, when they get to this scene in the anime, please dear God, use like horror music or something like that, with like just as like Buggy just like, oh God, I am gonna be in so much trouble if they see this. Oh no, they saw it. I'm so dead. Type of moment, with as like scared as Buggy seems. So they go back into the meeting room, or Buggy's torture dungeon, type of a thing. So they go back in there, and they just have like Buggy's head that's like, it's not on his body anymore, so Mihawk probably chopped it off or whatever and everything. And I'm pretty sure Buggy, or at this point in time, Buggy kind of knows some of his limits for what he can take with like being hit with attacks that have Haki in them, because I'm sure that Mihawk has probably tested whether or not using Haki on his blade when he's like trying to slice up Buggy, if that makes any difference, whether or not Buggy can like still separate or not, if he's, if he'll actually get like take damage if he's cut with a blade that has hockey on it. So I'm sure that like Buggy's gotten to that point in time where it's like he kind of knows where some of his limits are about things when it comes to some of that stuff. I do at least hope that Buggy got somewhat stronger during the time skip and everything, got a little bit better at some of his moves and stuff like that, probably improved on the monkey ball and whatever. So I would hope that's at least part of the case. But we see all of them. We see the three of them there. We don't see any of the other members of like the high rank members of the pirates, like Alvida and Galdino and stuff like that. They're just probably like, Buggy made a fool of himself again. Okay, let's go over here and party some more. Okay. It's none of our business, type of a thing, because they don't care. They don't care if Buggy gets hurt. And, so they have like Buggy, like his head's off his body and he's got like a big bruise over one of his eyes and he's like got his hair tied around one of the hooks that's like hanging there and everything. And Buggy's just like, please just kill me already. The pain. And we see Crocodile and Mihawk just like sitting there having a conversation while they're like looking over the newspaper or whatever. And they're, it's like, probably, just like a business meeting at that point in time, public awareness about the Cross Guild's growing. That's nice. We had one of our first successes here with the T-Bone thing. So that's nice. We got to figure out how we're going to pay that guy and his family and everything. We need to get to a point where you have unparalleled influence, to form our utopia and everything. We have to become a strong military state and like all this other stuff. And, and Mihawk's just sitting there like, yes, our overwhelming power, right? And Buggy is just kind of like, this is wrong. This is not how I wanted my life to go. Like, this is not what I was promised. It's just going through Buggy's head at this point in time. And then Buggy starts, I think it's Crocodile that's saying like we need an enormous amount of wealth and that type of stuff. And Buggy's just like, wealth? You're saying we need wealth and power, right? Well, I may be out of line here. And he starts like yelling at them from the hook where he's, hanging. Just like, I know what you're, I know you may do away with me for saying this, but can you call yourselves pirates with schemes like that? Well, they're not actually like being pirates. And bear in mind, Buggy, just like Shanks, was raised on the crew of Gold Deep Roger. He was raised by Roger and Rayleigh with like them and like Scopper and Crocus and the others and like around Odin and everything with like him, with like them as like father figures or uncle figures and stuff like that. And yes, we know Shanks was basically raised as a baby by them and Buggy came along at some other point in time, but Buggy and Shanks were basically raised like brothers and they had that bond, even though, yeah, Shanks made Buggy lose his treasure map for Captain John's treasure and swallow the devil fruit that he didn't want to swallow at that point in time and everything. So we know about that. And we know that those two don't have the best history in that regard. But, he's just like, you're doing this backwards. And I like how Mihawk just goes, what does the cockroach have to say about stuff? And, Buggy just like kind of goes off on a bit of a tirade against the two of them. I was on the Pirate King's crew. I was there. Yeah, circumstances prevented Shanks and I, Red Hair and I from going to Laugh Tale with the others and everything. This is a reference back to, Buggy and, Buggy getting sick just before they were going to head to Laugh Tale and then Shanks staying with him on that island and like taking care of Buggy until he was better, until the captain returned and everything, until the rest of the crew returned. Which does beg the question of, does, how much of the information for the location of Laugh Tale did Buggy and Shanks know? I mean, like, neither of them could read the poneglyphs, so even if they came across the poneglyph rubbings that, like, Roger and the other ones had, and that, like, Roger had Odin read and everything like that, that was, like, from Big Mom and stuff like that, even if they read that, they don't know what it says, and unless a bunch of the crew were just like, hey, walking around going, hey, we're going to be going to this spot, this spot, this spot, this spot, and then, like, cross them all together and everything. we don't know. I hope we get like a little bit more information about that in a flashback. I mean, yeah, Buggy says, it's like, no, we did not go, which we already knew as an audience that Buggy and Shanks didn't go to the island, because then they would know what the One Piece is and the true history and everything like that. They would know that, which may have, in all honesty, lit a little bit more of a fire under their butts after what happened with Roger, because they would know what's going to happen, or they would have an idea of what was going to happen. But Buggy seems, the title I wanted that I used for this was like, the clown gets his mojo back. I also wanted to go with Buggy gets his groove back, how Buggy got his groove back, or what I wanted to go with. And I know a lot of people are just using Buggy for the thumbnail, which is just like, hey, it's understandable. We get a lot of Buggy in this chapter. And you actually got a lot of good stuff from Buggy in this chapter, because we get a flashback with Buggy where we have him mentioning that, I sailed with Shanks and he's shown so bright, had so much potential and everything. And I knew I couldn't measure up. So I let go of my real dream, which I don't think Shanks ever really looked down on Buggy when they were growing up or anything like that. I don't see that was something that happened. It didn't appear that way. Even now, Shanks doesn't really seem to look down on Buggy and everything, even though now they're technically on equal footing with both of them being Yonko. I don't see, Shanks doesn't seem like he looked down on Buggy or anything like that. Even, with like, yeah, Shanks was given the straw hat by Roger and everything. We see like this moment where we see like, Shanks probably just like talking with Roger or whatever, and then we see Buggy like peering around a corner watching them. And it is kind of this thing where it's like you're worried that like, oh, your sibling is your parent's favorite or something like that. And I can see that there, that like Buggy is like sad about that he thinks maybe that like he knows that Roger and the other crew members like really care about him, and like Roger probably loved Buggy as much of a son as he did Shanks and everything. But sometimes that's hard for you to see when you're there all the time, and you just, with Shanks looking like it just makes it look so much easier. Training, being a pirate, all this other stuff, being able to, learn hockey better maybe than Buggy could at that point in time or whatever. We know Buggy could at least fight for himself, because we saw during the flashback with Odin and everything when they were fighting with the Whitebeard pirates that, Buggy and Shanks and such were going up against, Marco and Teach and stuff like that when they were, younger pirates. And I think it's Buggy is the one that like kicked Teach in the face, which I just find funny. That Buggy's one of the reasons Teach is like missing teeth, which is perfectly hilarious in my opinion. And so we get some stuff with that, and like we get a flashback to 24 years ago, just after, Roger was executed and everything, and Buggy is just like, you said it yourself, didn't you, Shanks? You said your crew would reach Laugh Tale one day too. And Shanks is like, yeah, this is when it's like pouring rain and everything after Roger died, which, I mean, first of all, losing Roger himself and everything was even if they weren't there when it happened, during the execution, losing Roger probably was broke something a little bit inside of both Shanks and Buggy, because that's losing their father figure. And the fact that they were there when it happened, they were there when Roger said those words of, go find the One Piece, it's there for the taking, blah, 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 it's yours if you can find it. And we just see, we saw how just like, kind of broken Shanks and Buggy looked at that point in time, as much as they were crying. And at witnessing that, because that's their father figure that they just watched die up on the scaffolding at Lode Town and everything. And we see Shanks there, and he's just like, yeah, but I've changed my mind for now, at least. I'm not ready to go for it yet. I'm still gonna be a pirate. We know that Shanks still ends up being a pirate. He goes off and he finds Yasopp and Ben Beckman and all the others, and eventually builds up his crew, and then is at Fuchsia Village and everything like that. We know that. Is eventually a Yonko and everything. And up to that point in time, maybe Shanks didn't really have the ambition to want to go after the One Piece. And of course, the question is still there of like, how much do they know about the locations? Because they knew where the road poneglyph was on Zoe. They know that there's one in Wano. They know that Big Mom had one. Shanks may know where the last one is. We just don't know yet. But, you know, they were there. They probably overheard stuff, which is something a lot of people point out, and I keep pointing out in a lot of these videos, is that they probably overheard a lot of the different locations that the different road poneglyphs list for like where they all intersect. You know, and as much as Shanks and Buggy aren't necessarily like the navigators of their own crews by any means, actually, I don't think we know who the navigator is on Buggy's crew. I don't think it's the lion. And I don't know if we know who the navigator is on Shanks's crew now that I think about it. I don't think so. But, you know, we see the two of them arguing, and Buggy just seems to have this moment where it's like, you're not the next generation's pirate king. Like, inside of his mind, he's like, I misjudged you. Like, he thought that Shanks was just gonna, like, pick up his sword and, like, head off and, like, go off and try to claim the, you know, position of pirate king and, like, until someone else can show up and, like, defeat him. I'm pretty sure that's what Buggy thought Shanks was gonna do. And, but, you know, Shanks is like, you know, come with me, Buggy. And Buggy's just like, this is why he's like, I'm not going to work under an idiot like you, you know, you coward. And he just like heads off and everything. You know, don't you care about following in Captain Roger's footsteps and everything? You know, you haven't forgotten, have you? You know, it's like, it's your fault that I don't have my treasure map anymore. And that was, you know, I'll never forgive you for that. And everything. He runs off and everything. And, you know, this is you know, it's like we know that meeting Luffy and everything will happen at, you know, Orange Town and then at, you know, Log Town and everything, which probably brought up a lot of flashbacks for Buggy when he was at Log Town, dealing with Luffy and everything. That probably brought up a lot of flashbacks for Buggy at that point in time, and such, and. You know, a lot of that is like what lit the fire under Buggy again to get him to go back into, you know, go into the Grand Line and everything. And I talked about that in my video about, you know, the Be a Buggy the Clown video and everything. You know, we saw a lot, you know, I talked a lot about that there. But that lit a fire under Buggy, and we're seeing a little bit more of this now, where like, now Buggy is to the point where it's just like, to the world's eyes, he's on equal footing with Shanks. And, you know, he's just like, I'm done. You know, it's like, I can't make the moves that Shanks does and everything, but he's finally, you know, stepping up and trying to go after the One Piece and everything. And, you know, I know I, you know, don't have the, you know, but, you know, somehow through luck or chance and everything, we're on equal footing and everything like that. And it was just like, I'm going to say what I've always wanted to say. It's just like, I want to be the king of the pirates. Like, Buggy's like crying and everything. And both, you know, he's like, I want the wealth. I want the fame. I want, you know, the power that goes with it and everything. You know, why can't we just go and claim the ultimate treasure and everything? And then I think it's just like Crocodile that just like punches Buggy and like sends his head like through the wall, or like dents the wall or whatever. And Buggy is just, you know, both Shanks or both, I think it's like both Crocodile and, let me check here. Hold on. Bad computer. It's both Crocodile and Mihawk, which of course, you know, Mihawk has a history with Shanks as well, so there's at least some form of a rivalry there and everything. But Crocodile hasn't ever really interacted with Shanks as far as we're aware. And, you know, Crocodile's like, you know, you think we're just going to go and do all of that for you and everything? You know, you think that that's just what we're going to do? You know, we don't even know where to start with a lot of that other stuff because, like, unless Buggy is willing to tell them a bunch of stuff about, you know, Zoe and stuff like that, I don't know if they're going to be able to, you know, they're definitely, well, I don't know. Big Mom's country might be kind of falling apart at the moment with Totland and everything with her and stuff, so that one might be easier to get to, but even then, they don't have anyone that can read the poneglyphs, because Buggy can't read the poneglyphs. And unless Alvida reveals a hidden talent for, like, archaeology or something like that we didn't know about for 25 years, I was like, well, it never came up in conversation because you never asked. She's, like, sitting there like, wait, you studied archaeology? You can read the poneglyphs? Alvida, well, yeah, but it never came up in conversation, so I never thought that it was rather. I never thought that it made it. Never really thought that it mattered. Just like all the others. Why didn't we ever ask her about that? She didn't seem the type with her giant mallets. Good point. Um, her giant spiked hammer. True. Um, so there's that whole thought, but um, again, I need to know if Buggy and Shanks know the locations that were listed on all the different poneglyphs. That is something that we as an audience need to know, because if that's the case, then Shanks technically does not need kids' poneglyph rubbings. And Buggy would technically already know where the One Piece is. He just never wanted to go after it because he didn't have that fire lit under him. He was content with where he was as being a warlord, and then now he's a Yonko, and now he's just like he's got this fire lit under him. And he like activated the Dendemushi that they have there. There's probably like a broadcast over the entire island, and he's like yelling into it. He's just like, we're gonna do it, boys. We're gonna do this. And he's like Mihawk or Crocodile's like stepping on Buggy's head while he's yelling into the Dendemushi and everything. He's just like, it's time for us to finally go and claim the One Piece. He's like shouting, like everybody's just like, yeah. And Mihawk and Crocodile are like, oh god, you were gonna be in so much pain very quickly type of moment, with as angry as they look. Which is just funny. And then we cut to our last location for this chapter. We cut to Kamabaka Kingdom in the Grand Line. So the paradise side of things. And we got to the coast of the island where we see 4 people. Well, a mink, a girl with a robo hand, a short round dude, and then a new guy that we haven't been introduced to yet. And we see a ship slowly appearing on the horizon. And we see the 4 people talking, and we've seen a couple of them before. We've seen the cow mink before, and we've seen the girl with the arm before, and we've seen the round guy before, but we haven't seen the other guy before. So these are the cow mink is the Revolutionary Army vice captain of the West unit, serves under Morley's unit, and his name is Ushiano. He's a cow mink. I thought for some reason that he was part of Lindbergh stuff since he's a mink, but I guess not. Presumptive of me. I know we've at least seen 3 of these before because they popped up in the anime before when we saw Bello Betty and Koala talking with each other, but the 4th guy I don't think we've seen yet. And then the girl is Revolutionary Army vice captain of the East Army, so she's Bello Betty's subordinate. Ahiru, which if I think somewhere meant duck. I think I heard that somewhere that meant duck. And then the more rounded guy with like the pointed hat and the mustache, he's a Revolutionary Army vice captain of the South Army under Lindbergh's subordinate. Gamble, I think is what his name is. And he does appear to be trying to gamble with the other guy, who I kind of thought he looked a little bit like Yonji, just because he's got like what look like slick back hair and like, headphone type things. But I don't know. His name, he is the Revolutionary Army vice captain of the North Blue, so he serves under Karasu. Jiran is his name. Don't ask me what any other names mean. I only know the girl because it's like duck, because I remember hearing that somewhere. And like they're all just discussing of like, what should we do with the ship? Should we attack it? And the girl's got a cybernetic arm, which was probably made by Lindbergh at some point in time. Maybe she probably lost it at some point in time. Maybe she was actually born without the arm, and then Lindbergh gave her an arm and stuff. And it looks like it could probably do like a laser or something like that. Like the gamble guy is just like, you want to have a wager, whether or not it's an enemy ship or not. And the other guy looks like he's eating something. Jaron looks like he's eating something. He's just like, sound good to me. I'll put 1,000,000 berry on it being Sabo and making it back safe. And we cut to where we see Ivankov and Dragon, and like someone runs up and it's just like, Dragon-san, Ivankov-san, Sabo's back. And everything. They're just like, oh yay, he's back. And they're all happy and everything. So he made it home okay. That's, thank goodness. It was like Ivankov's reaction, which Ivankov and Dragon, Ivankov's been around Sabo since Sabo was a kid and everything, because he was, Ivankov was there during the flashback, for Goa Kingdom and everything. So he's been around Sabo a whole lot of time, even before Ivankov ended up in prison in Impel Down. I don't remember if we get an exact date for when he was in Impel Down to begin with. I don't remember exactly. But he was around Sabo a lot while they were, while Sabo was growing up when he didn't have his memories and everything like that. So there's a good relationship there. And of course, the last 2 years, Ivankov's probably been getting reacquainted and, getting caught up on a bunch of stuff with like Sabo and Koala and everything. And then we cut to where we see the ship has docked, and the gamble guy is just like, I shouldn't have bet against you, because when you said 1,000,000 berries, and it's like, I'm not paying for it. And Jaron is just like, well, I'll ring it out of you then. It's clearly just like, I don't know, maybe they have a rivalry like Sanji and Zoro do. I don't know. He's like, he's like, oh, you use those binoculars to eat them. What binoculars? And it's just like, stop eating them. I'm like, okay, so Jaron is eating the binoculars. Does he have a devil fruit that allows him to do that? Are they made out of edible material, like from Totland or something? I don't know. Questions that we now have, of course, but they're all just like really happy to see Sabo and everything. And Sabo's just like, yeah, we're fine. Sorry you guys were worried and everything. Maybe a little. The cow guy, Luciano, seems to have like a very stilted way of talking. So I don't know if that's just I don't know if that's a dialect setup or what. So you just have like a stilted way of talking and everything, like very simple way of talking. But they're all happy that like Sabo is safe and everything. And Sabo's like, yeah, I'm fine. That's Lelucia's ship and everything that, I managed to get the ship and everything. And it's like, I'll explain later, but for now, can you help these guys? And he points to, we see that Muda is perfectly safe and everything, along with a whole bunch of other members of, the different citizens of Lelucia. Probably not all of them. I highly doubt he could get all of them on the ship, but he probably got a bunch of them on the ship. As they were, sailing away and everything. And then we see Koala show up and she starts like trying to kick at Sabo and everything. So we see him like dodging the attacks and everything. She was like, you went radio silent. How could you do that to us? And everything was just like, I love Sabo and Koala. I really want them to be in a relationship later on. And she's just like really mad at him. He's just like, I'm sorry, Koala. I thought I sent I couldn't find an encrypted snail, but I thought I sent the code that meant I was safe and everything. And she was like, you made me so worried. I'm sorry. And she's just like crying and like hugging him and everything. They've known each other for a long time and they're best friends. So even if they don't end up being actually in a relationship, they're just adorable together anyway. The two of them, I love it. And then we see like Morley shows up and he's just like so happy that Sabo's okay, because Morley was there when stuff went down at Marijois, so Morley may have some idea of what happened, but not all of it. He didn't see everything that Sabo did, but he's just like, really happy, Morley's really happy to see Sabo and everything. You scared us, silly, and everything. And then we see Bella Betty, they're like talking with a bunch of the people from Lelucia, and she's just like, I remember you losers from Lelucia. You came a long way and everything. Like, she's really happy seeing them. And she's just like, it's a real shame what happened to your homes. Sorry about that. But we heard that you were hoping about wanting to join us. And they're like, yes, ma'am. And she's like, first things first, let's get you some rest and food and we'll get you straightened out later. So you guys go and rest and like probably clean up and everything and get some new clothes. I'm sure the fashions and everything that are on Kamabaka Kingdom are very nice. Lots of pinks and pretty colors and everything. So then we cut to where we have Sabo and having a discussion with Dragon and Ivankov. And I like how they have like the revolutionary flag on the table as like a tablecloth. And like it looks like they pulled out like some form of like booze or something to like celebrate Sabo's being alive and everything. And so I was like, yeah, I heard about Kuma-san, about like him, being on, trying to climb the red line again and everything. And he's like, yeah. And Dragon's just like, yeah, we're sorry about that after all the effort you guys went through getting him back. Maybe he was programmed to return to Marijois if something happened or whatever. And Ivankov was like, come on, Sabo, you gotta, tell us what happened. You sent away the rest of the commanders and everything, so what's going on? what did you want to say? And it basically gets to the point where Sabo's just like, okay, there was a lot of major trouble at the Reverie, and now I'm going to tell you exactly what happened there, what really happened at the Holy Land of Marijois. And we just see them, he's just like very serious and everything and ready to tell them. And, don't know if we're going to get more of that in the next chapter. Don't know if we're going to have to wait a couple of more weeks to get more information about what's going on here. If we jump back to Egghead or if we jump somewhere else in the world to find out what's going on with Sob or find out what is going on here. Again, Oda may just keep us in suspense longer, which would be perfectly natural if Oda did that. He already kept us in suspense for a while on A, what happened at the Reverie? B, was Sabo alive? C, is Sabo still alive? Yes, because he survived, and I love it when he does that. But, it's just like, okay, what are we going to find out here? Are we going to find out what happened with, we know that Vivi's alive, just with Wapol and Morgans, but she's alive at the very least. Sabo's alive. He saved a bunch of people that were at the Lelucia Kingdom. The island itself is most likely either gone or just nothing but like a pitted lump of rock in the middle of the ocean at this point in time. And they managed to survive and escape. Moto was the main one there that we had any form of connection to, but she's alive. Pretty sure the royal family of Lelucia is probably dead unless they had them on the ship with them, which I doubt. But they're most likely dead is probably a good chunk of the population. Unfortunately, after what happened with the giant sky laser cannon thing. And, Sabo will most likely tell them about Im Sama and everything and say what he saw there, say what he saw and possibly what happened with Vivi. Maybe he was one of the ones that helped Vivi escape, and then he had to escape on his own and everything. Again, we don't know if like Kuma still has his powers. We know that Kuma ended up back at Kamabaka Island with, Morley and Karasu and Lindbergh, but we don't, Sabo ended up somewhere else and everything else. So we don't know exactly how that went. We'll hopefully get a good flashback of that either in the next chapter, if that's what ends up happening, or if that ends up being something that gets brought up a few chapters down the line. Maybe Oda will spin it where it's just like, oh, well, Sabo's going to explain it to Ivankov and Dragon and everything. And then when, and then we as an audience, like maybe we'll get some flashes of what happened. And then maybe it'll be like how Oda played it off with Oden's flashback, where we got like this, where we had Kinemon telling it to, Luffy and his group that had just arrived in Wano, and where, Kinemon told them about like, where they basically were told about the Oden flashback. And then we as an audience just got some snips of it. And then we didn't get the full flashback until, several chapters later and everything. Just before we ended up going, just before they went to Onigashima and everything, before they headed off for that and everything. And that's when we as the audience got the flashback. So Oda might play it off as that, where he's just like, maybe, if we do get the conversation where we have Sabo telling them about, like, he might mention Im Sama and then he might mention something else. And then, cut to like something else happened, and that's where he's like talking. And then later on, as an audience, we might get the flashback more from like Vivi's perspective or something like that, where we get more of that information there. And, we're able to see more of like how that ended up panning out in regards to, what actually happened. Because it's not like Oda didn't make us wait for that type of stuff before, so it's not surprising if we have to wait again for that type of flashback, however that ends up going. So we'll have to see how that goes. This chapter was not supposed to come out until next week, so I don't know what they're going to do about that, because they were supposed to be on break for Golden Week in Japan, and now, well, that didn't happen, but now we have like a chapter that's out a week early, and the official isn't even going to be out until like sometime next week, probably. And then, then we'll have to wait for the next chapter. So are we going to keep getting the chapters like a week early at this point in time and then just like be off schedule or something? Or I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Buggy's all fired up to go and, try to become the Pirate King at this point in time. We'll see how much more pain that results in him being in from a Crocodile and Mihawk. Suru and Sengoku are having to deal with like Garp going off and being Garp, so we'll see how that pans out. And then now we have Sabo telling, Sabo's alive, a bunch of other people are still alive from Leloucia, so that's good. He's back on Kamabaka Kingdom. Now we've got to deal with like a bunch of this other stuff and him informing Ivankov and Dragon about what happened and all this other stuff. So we'll see how that gets played out, whether or not we get the flashback next week. And we're just away from Egghead even longer, but we're getting other information we've wanted for a couple of years at this point in time. Or if we're going to end up having to wait and get the flashback at a later time from maybe Vivi's perspective or at a different point in time where it's like Oda is now ready to give us this information and that type of stuff. So we'll see how that goes. That's what we have for this. Yeah, I wasn't planning on having to do a chapter this week, but okay. So that's what we have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. Oh yeah, it's Arbor Day, so happy Arbor Day.